Welcome to the new episode. Today we have Jovana with us. Thank you, Jovana, for being here. So would you first introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Jovana Milosavljević Ardeljan. I'm Director for Career Professional Community Development at the University of New Hampshire. I live and work in America. I've been here for 11 years. And yeah, I come from Serbia. So yeah.
Yeah, so before we started recording, we had a really nice discussion about what you do for a living and how you see at these protests, like your look on these student protests, the student movement, I would say actually better, through the lens of your job.
Sure. So as I mentioned, I'm Director for Career Professional Community Development or Student Success. I work with graduate students, so master's, PhD students, and postdocs as well. And when I say professional development, it's really a wide umbrella of skill development that I offer to graduate students, and that covers everything from oral and written communication, research, teaching, mental health, overall well-being, community building, but also career preparation, career exploration, and everything to job placement as they graduate. So something that I've been fascinated by with the Serbian student movement is the way they've been really putting into practice all those skills that I help graduate students over here to develop for really this higher cause that really benefits everybody beyond them. And that's been amazing to me. Everything that they've done really requires all these different skills that go beyond their profession. We have students from all these different fields of study. I think starting with that base of their expertise, their subject matter expertise, they've managed to put into practice things that they know within their area, but do that through communication that is really critical because they work with so many different people beyond their own university and their field of study. They've done an amazing job with media. There's so much about logistics that you need to use over here, all the writing, all the oral communication, all the research that I'm sure they're constantly doing. I think they're really great there at fact checking, and those are things that really tie to critical thinking and being able to understand the context, understand your audience, understand what is the goal of what you're doing, and to do it in a way that's employing all these different skills that are transferable, are beyond what you study, what's your subject matter expertise. So that's been really amazing to me. And I wrote this article that was published over here in Inside Higher Ed, where I analyzed protests in Serbia through that lens of skills, transferable skills, and how they put them to work in this enormous student movement. And I wrote it hoping that it will inspire others and help students understand that your skill development is it goes way beyond your university or your college. It can be really applied in so many different ways, including fight for some really big things in our lives.
Yeah. This is not only about the education. This started as something like for education because that's also a problem, but it'll advance to be way bigger. Yeah. You also mentioned that we have this thing. I don't know whether I want to connect it to like the Balkans, the Balkan culture, or what do we connect it with? But we crave a leader, or maybe it's just a human thing. So we crave a leader. We have a president, and a president in our country is a leader. How would I say it? But yeah, so we need someone to lead us. Otherwise, we feel like we don't see anything, like we're going with our closed eyes. So the student movement doesn't have it. And that's like one of the first things, like they don't have a leader. They don't have a political organization behind them, nothing. So how does that still work if that's so many hundreds of students that are just doing one thing?
Yeah, that's another thing that I've been really impressed with what students have been doing. I do believe it is in our culture, and as you mentioned, it might be in human nature as well. But I think it's particularly true of our culture that we have this strong cult of leader and belief in a leader whose going to be taking care of all of us. We chatted briefly whether it's tied to communism and socialism and all these different systems that we went through, but those are part of the history that these students did not live through. It's not part of their history, or at least not their lived experience.
Yeah,
It's
but they've
something that they've read
heard a
about, that
lot.
they've heard about. With the way things are now and the context in which they live, I think there was this window, this opportunity for them to develop their own mind on how things are and how things should be, and not hold on to just what was it like before. I hear very often from my friends saying that they live in their sort of micro worlds, and try not to be too
From your
involved in other
friends
things.
in
Sorry?
Serbia.
Yes, yeah.
From your friends
Yeah,
in
sorry,
Serbia.
Serbian friends saying like that they live in their own micro worlds where they're trying to stay detached from everything that's happening, that they know is wrong, and they feel like helpless, they can't do anything about it. And maybe, or maybe their kids grew up in those micro worlds where they were in some way protected from what I'll speak for my generation, what we've been just very much exposed to. And it's a good thing in many ways. I'm not saying that they don't know history. I think they do, but they don't hold on to it in the same way. They're more making decisions based on common sense, what is right and how things should be. And they know it's not dependent on a single leader. It really depends on the community. And if things need to change, we all have to contribute to that change. And it has to be part of the systematic change of everyone. And everybody is responsible for it. It's when you hold everybody accountable, then everybody needs to do their role and not rely on a single leader or a group of leaders who will be making decisions. And that's how you succeed. I really think that's true. We can look at other countries, and there are so many, I think, similar leaders and systems that are existing in other countries, maybe for, longer or shorter period of time. But what is common to all of them is that you have a group of people who is responsible for everything, for good and the bad. And it's on us as a community at large to say yes or no. I really strongly believe that power only exists if the majority agrees to it. Everybody in power is not something tangible. It's not real. It's something that the majority agrees to adhere to and follow. So whatever power any leadership has, they only have it because the people agree and say, yeah, you do have the power to decide for everybody else. When that mindset changes, as I think happened with students, you feel like you can put that resistance and you can say no, and you have something to offer as an alternative. And I think that's what happened, where they got so much support from everybody else, is that realization that no, you really don't have power. It's us who have it.
Or who should have
And
it, yeah.
should have it, and that requires a long time. I've heard from people, this is going on for too long. It's really not. Changing people's mindset takes a long time. It's one of the hardest jobs. We are hardwired to think certain way, and we resist. It takes time to change, especially when you have history of history repeating itself and people lose faith. I'll admit I'm one of those people. I left Serbia because I lost faith that anything ever is going to change. And that's something that I'll take as my confession and my responsibility, that I didn't stay and didn't resist in a way, or I tried to resist and then gave up eventually. But these students found a way to inspire people not to give up and realize where the real power is and what they can do for themselves, for each other. That emphasis on community is something that I strongly believe in, something that we should all lead with, not to rely on somebody else to but rely on each other to be leaders as a community. Understand that we can disagree, but we can still have fruitful discussion and find the best possible solution, and not have a single person or a group of people just make all decisions and sort of turn a blind eye when we know things are not right, but sort of brush it off as, well, there's nothing I can do as an individual. There's a quote that I really, really, well, I don't know if it's a quote, I don't know who said it. I read it at a coffee shop as I was going for a plastic straw to put in my to-go coffee to go. There was this little sign attached to this container that held all the plastic straws, and what it said over there was, "It's just one straw, said a billion people." And that was super powerful for me. I never ever used a straw after that, and that's something that I always go back to whenever whenever I'm sort of about to say, well, there's nothing I can do as an individual. Yes, I can. Because if a billion people say, I can do something as an individual, then we can do something. And it goes, the other way around. If a billion of people say, well, there's nothing I can do as an individual, then everybody feels the same. So that emphasis on community is really the way I think things can change and can be better. I mentioned earlier, holding everybody accountable and not just what a single person or again a group of people is the way to change things. So really impressive what students managed to do to stay focused on that community and not let anybody stand out, which is so easy to happen. We have naturally born leaders. I'm in a leadership position, and I tend to sort of raise my hand when whatever discussion is and who's going to lead the group, I'll volunteer. So that's really in our nature to have leaders. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. But when you have these major movements, in order for things to change, you really need the whole community, the whole society to put everything and not fall into the same pit of, well, this person offered to do it, we'll just let them do and I don't have to do anything. So I'm impressed that they managed to sort of avoid that trap. I'm sure they had many challenges. I'm sure there were opportunities where somebody could have stand out and sort of take that leadership, but really amazing that they managed to avoid that and focus on the community. And what they do now, going out into the society and talking to everybody.
Not only in Serbia, but also in Europe.
Yeah, that goes back to holding everybody accountable. It's everybody's country, and I've gotten a fair amount of comments of, what there is no place for you to do anything or say anything. You left this country, and I disagree with that. I think there is a role and place for us to play, and when I say us, I mean those who live elsewhere, who left Serbia. We are responsible as well. We don't get to, be off the hook because we left. We have responsibility to advocate, to support, to raise awareness. And that's two things that we as a group in Boston, group of Serbians from Boston, that we took on as send support in many different ways to our students, but then raise awareness about what's happening in Serbia, not just to get more people to influence, but also to spread awareness so that we would inspire others to do similar things. This fight that students are fighting is something that I can't imagine anybody with common sense saying, no, you don't want your institutions to be doing their job. That's not a good thing. Every country has its share of institutions that are not always doing their job right. So inspiring others to take initiative to change things and take charge of their countries is a really important role to play. We are positioned to do that. We living abroad are part of different organizations, systems, whether it's through our work or whatever it is. We do have a place to influence others, and I think we need to exercise that privilege that we have.
Yeah. So these protests since 7-8 months now, actually. They've been known as something that is really peaceful intended, that's structured, that's planned, that's forming the community. Before every protest, we have Instagram posts and some alerts, attentions, that are as small as like don't bring your dogs or don't bring your children to this one. Like for 15th of March, it was like don't bring your dogs because it's like a lot of people. We expect a lot of people. But then you also have like this is how we're going to walk. But then you also have like this is where the food is going to be. So it's like really like planned. But also we always have that community, the sense of community. We have our jokes that are constantly being said during the protest. Their biggest intention is for it to be peaceful, not to cause any problems. In what way do you think that the current educational system, civic educational system in Serbia has influenced these young people? I would say like since high school. How do you think, or what influenced them the most to act like this? To not be like just, this is also a moment to riot. This is a moment to rebel. This is a moment also to break things. But have you ever noticed something in our education or in our system that could have influenced this way?
Well, we've known riots, we've seen riots, and
Yeah, 5th of October.
did it get us anywhere? We changed the regime, but we didn't change the system.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing this is what they started with. Let's see what we've done. If we address the same problem in the same way and not getting results that we want, then we're just not doing that. We don't have the right approach. We have to change the approach because the problem is not going to change. It's still there. So I think they realized that. Now, whether something changed or what is it in our educational system, it's really hard for me to say. I was in that system 25 years ago. I left Serbia 11 years ago, so I really don't have direct connections so that I can speak to it with a lot of confidence. But I think there definitely at least remains, if not anything more robust. Again, I'm not there, so it's hard for me to say. But based on my own education, I do appreciate that we have strong foundations, or that we had, at least that's my experience in my education, strong foundation in so many different areas. My doctoral studies were in education, in leadership and policy, so I studied extensively U.S. education system. And one of the big differences is that you over here very early on get specialized in a certain area, and you don't have this broad education, this liberal education. At least that's not universal. It's more dependent on from institution to institution. But for us, it is on the national level, this liberal arts education, where you do have to learn all these different subjects, from history to geography to chemistry to music to languages, literature, and all of those just broaden your perspectives, and you have so much more to work with. So I hope that's still there, and that's the foundation that our students have, and that help them put things in scale. For anything to work properly, you do have to have a plan in place. You can't just go in, as we've seen, let's just, go to the streets and, see what happens. And it all,
Yeah.
usually led to riots. But how about we actually follow a plan? When you look at any functional system, there are procedures, there are plans. Take education. You have a whole year planned, then you have a semester planned, then you have your month planned, then you have your week planned and your lesson planned. There's everything is in these units, and there is a rhyme and reason to it why you do things certain way, if you want them to go well and if you want to have desired outcome. And this is what students have. They're very much focused on the desired outcome, and those are the requests they've had, and they've been holding on to very, very rigorously and not changing. So they started with, these are the outcomes we want. These are the requirements. We want everything about the fall of the railway canopy. We want all the documents revealed. That's very clear. That's our goal. So going through all those goals, then you can work backwards. What are the things that we can do that will lead to our desired outcomes? And then when you break it down to these smaller pieces, you will think of, well, if we want to succeed, then we have to avoid incidents and issues. And if we want to succeed, what are the things that could lead to incidents? Well, let's make sure that nobody's injured. Who are the first, people to think about? Well, the children, elderly people, pets. So you really break everything down into these smaller steps. And when you have, as I mentioned earlier, you have people from so many different areas come together, think about the problem from their own perspective. All the world's greatest problems cannot be solved by a single group of people from whatever single field. They always require multiple perspectives from multiple people. This is how you solve the greatest world problems. This is how you solve even the smaller problems. You have people come from different subject matter expertise and they address the problem from their own perspective. And that will involve students from civil engineering, that will involve students from law, that will involve students from humanities. Everybody plays a role and everybody has a perspective. So you do think from the smallest thing to the biggest thing. That brings us back to the community. You cannot expect from whatever single person to know it all. But if you
Yeah.
bring the community together, that's how it's supposed to work through governance. It's a different thing that
Ministry.
we have wrong people in those positions. But
Yeah.
that's how it's supposed to work, that you have governance represented through people from all kinds of walks of life and all kinds of expertise, and everybody is supposed to bring their perspective, but also be able to understand what others bring to the table, and then consider everything. So the lack of ego, the lack of this goal to be in power, all aligned, I think, to make this successful, so that they're thinking about the common cause and not about individual interests, as we've seen so often.
Yeah. And we also mentioned, so this has been going on for 7, 8 months, and the universities are blocked. All of the universities, not only in Belgrade, like all around Serbia. So Serbia is a country without education. Education does not exist right now. What do you think, what kind of attack on the state is that? And that meaning like no education, like the whole semester is basically gone. Yeah, the whole semester. So yeah, how is it attacking the country, and why is that a good plan? Why they go forward with it?
Education, health, judicial system, those are the pillars of a society. And I want to lead with education because this is what we encounter very early on, starting with daycare, kindergarten, later on through schools, all the grades, and as you move up. There's family, that raises children, and there's education. Those are the two that form and shape us in the most impactful ways. Society, of course, that we grew up in. But the foundation for all of that is education. And when it's not working, when it's not functioning, it is in many ways an attack to the whole country. And I think it should be. I really think it should be, because you need that system to work properly. I don't know, to use a metaphor, you can't expect to have good crop and good yield, whatever you grow, say it's corn, if you don't have the good seeds to begin with, and if you're not treating them and nourishing them and, raising them well, then down the line, it's not gonna, you're not gonna be getting out of it what you need. So in order for the system to work properly, it depends how big of a problem it is. Sometimes you do have to stop the whole system and change. I'll use COVID as an example of how you actually can change things and you have to stop. It's unfortunate that we needed COVID, worldwide pandemic to change things, but I'll again reference a little bit my own education, being in PhD program in education. As an outsider over here, I was the only one in my cohort as an international student, and whenever I would bring up, a different way of going about education, many of my colleagues would say, well, that's impossible. Education is such a huge system. You can't do anything, you can't change it that way. And guess what? Pandemic happened and we changed in so many ways.
And
So
really
it is
fast, just like that.
very quickly, something forced us to do it. And I think similar thing happened to Serbia. Something forced us to stop. Is there a loss? Yes. In the greater context, is it for the better? Yes. So if you know that the train is not on the right track, are you going to let the train run or are you going to stop the train? Yes, it's not going to be on time where it's supposed to be, but the train is not on the right track and you absolutely need to stop the train, right? You don't let it
Hmm.
run still to be there in time, even though you know it's not on the right
It's
track. So to
going
me,
nowhere.
it's just not going in the right direction and it's going to its own doom and the doom of the whole society. So, certain sacrifice has to be made in order for things to change. I think these students lost a semester, lost a whole academic year, but I really
Hmm.
think they gained so much. And I'm not trying to speak on their behalf. They sacrificed their own ambitions, their own goals for the greater good, for good of
Hmm.
everybody else, to gain something. Again, referencing what I wrote in that article, the skills that they developed over there, not over there, but in what they're still doing, are still valuable, extremely valuable things that they gained that sort of make up maybe a little bit for the loss. I choose to observe it from the perspective of gain and growth. And again, this is my observation, not something that
Hmm.
I'm presenting as a matter of fact. The students are the ones who will
Of
say
course.
one way or another. It's just my observation that there is gain to it, and definitely gain that they're making for everybody. But I really hope that they see gain themselves, and growth in what they've been doing, for this much greater cause, much greater than any one of us.
Hmm.
So that's how I see it. There there is time to make up for
For
what
a
they could
lost.
have been learning through textbooks, through discussion, through lectures, through projects. And I still think they've been doing so much of that. I've heard so many times that they didn't take the exams that they intended to take this year, but they've taken some much, much bigger exams in ethics, in morality, in justice, in so many things that are way more valuable than any formal education can offer
Hmm.
ever. So it's a matter of where, how do you want to weigh things? Not that one has greater value than the other, but that also doesn't mean that you discard any of these things. I really see so much value in everything that they've done, and that what they're still doing. And I really hope that they feel like they got something in return.
Yeah, yeah. This is also like one of the biggest things that we've talked about in past episodes is that like they've connected the diaspora. I never felt more connected to my home
Yeah,
before than right now. Like we would have never meet probably. You're on other continents and we have nothing to do with our fields, but we're still like connected. And a lot of people I've met and a lot of people just have finally that sense of hope, especially if you're living abroad and you're like, "Oh, maybe me living here is not my only option in life. Maybe like there is going to be option to come back." So that's also what they've done. Like they
yeah,
woke up some feelings in millions of people who live abroad about their home.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they're ever going to understand the big things that they've done, but I think also they do.
That greater impact, that just this ripple effect of everything they've been doing is something that's going to go down in history as one of the highest achievements, in my opinion.
Yes, already.
I really second what you said. I never felt more connected. I think we, to different extent, people in diaspora may feel completely disconnected or maybe sort of connected to Serbia they know. Some may be more connected, still very much connected to current Serbia. But what I think we all might have been longing for is really that common sense of pride that we share about Serbia. And this is for me one of the things that, this common sense of pride. We do have other things there. There's sports, there's art, there are different areas where we feel more connected, but that's still not as common as this is because so many people, you may like sport and you may take pride in that, but then others like, I don't really follow or watch any of that. But this sense of pride comes from that sense of belonging. We live in different countries. Some people have the citizenship of the country that they live in and maybe identifying with that. But for many, myself included, I can't imagine myself feeling as a citizen with the citizenship sense of any other country than Serbia. I just cannot imagine that I now become have a sense of being American. I'm never going to be American, and I don't want to be American. And this sense of pride of being Serbian is something that's been really moving for me, and it got new perspective through students. I always put forward when I speak to anybody, I say that I come from Serbia, before any of these. So I never lost that, but this is a new sense of feeling so proud for our young people and what they achieved, because it's so monumental. It's just beyond any achievement in sports or anything else. This is like really monumental. This touches on human rights. This touches on this foundational change in society. That's just beyond everything else. And
It's very universal.
It's universal, and it's a really, for me, a new sense of pride that connected me to so many people around the world that otherwise I may have nothing in common other than, we come from Serbia, and that may be the only sort of touching point. But this is just such a new level of connection and a sense of purpose that we, I think we all got, both in Serbia and over here, really that new sense of purpose of what I can do and what I'm part of and where I belong. And that sense of belonging is really important for us as humans. That's in our nature, that we need that sense of belonging, of being part of the community. And it's so hard to be part of a community when it's dysfunctional, when things are wrong in it. So when something, this power, this movement rises where it's set up to set things right and to capitalize on that sense of belonging, then it's just so easy to fall in love with it. Literally. I've heard so many people say that, and I feel the same. I feel like I'm in love with students. They lead with love. They connect on a human level. And it's sad to say, but it's refreshing. It's new. It shouldn't be.
Very much.
But it feels refreshing. It feels new.
Yeah. Yeah, it struck all of us. And how do you talk about this to your friends or colleagues at the US? How do you show this? Like, how do you talk about it? How do you present it? And what is their reaction?
I find every possible way, whatever the conversation, whatever the topic, I find a way to insert. So let me tell you what's happening in Serbia. So that's been sort of my mission. No matter what the topic is, I will bring up students, and I've gotten the majority is very curious and interested and want to learn more. Many are now doing their own research. I'm getting messages. So this article came out. Oh, I just saw this discussed, and it was brought up in the news. And I get those messages all the time now. So it took a couple of months of bringing it up and doing my own work on, there aren't, as you mentioned when we started talking, the goal of this podcast is to have something in English. So in the beginning, there wasn't much in English to share. So it was me translating and, talking about different things to explain what is going on and adding historical context, helping them really understand what's going on. And it's been really received very, very well in a very positive way. I've had faculty reach out and express interest to come and talk to their students. I've had my colleagues be really sympathetic and understanding that, every Saturday I'm in Boston. So they're sort of keeping in mind, oh, Jovana is really busy with this now. So, let's have somebody else do that. So they've been really, really supportive. Many of them have contributed to our contributions that we've been sending to students, and doing that, they've been sharing themselves. And that was, as I mentioned earlier, that was the goal, to raise awareness of what is happening in Serbia.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, what I mentioned earlier, now they send me messages. This article came out and I heard it over here and over there. It feels like these little wins and success in what we're doing. So that when I meet somebody new, for the longest time, and when I say I'm from Serbia, oh yeah, Yugoslavia, Tito, I'm like, yeah, no, you know, um, it's now new associations that people have, and
Oh,
it's
something's
this kind of
happening in Serbia.
association. So yeah,
I
people are
always get that,
definitely.
they always say, like, I say I'm from Serbia, and they're like, oh, is there like something happening, the protests and something? I'm like, yes.
And I'll say another point of my pride is when I tell them about students, so many people say, oh my God, I wish our students were doing the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned it earlier, that hope to inspire others. It's not quite there. It's mostly, I wish, it was happening here. Sometimes, oh my God, I can't see our students do that. And then I would be followed, this is what we all thought. This is what we all thought, that they're all just, on social media, completely disconnected, not interested in anything. But, they surprised us. This was literally where we were 8 months ago. Everybody was thinking
Mm-hmm.
the same. So yeah, I take every single opportunity to speak about our students. And if there isn't one, I create it. And then I bring it up,
Yeah,
and we
yeah,
have talked about
yeah.
it.
Totally understandable.
Yeah, and
And
then again, I'll mention the article just because it was very important for me, for academic society to learn about these protests. I mentioned Inside Higher Ed as a place where I wanted to publish the article. And it wasn't about the politics. It isn't about the politics. It's really about the success of these amazing students to demonstrate what they know, how much they know, how much more they know that they think than we think they do. So I really wanted to put that out for my audience, and that's people in education, faculty, leaders like deans and others who tend to read these articles in this particular venue. So it was really important for me to touch on that sphere of where I am, and put it in this academic context of what is going on
mm,
in Serbia and why is it valuable beyond this political change and political scene. I really, my goal was not to make the article political, and I don't think it is. I really focused, I stayed in my lane, and that's observing and analyzing the protests through my lens of my work, and that's skill development for graduate students. So it's the communities that I'm part of, so speak to those communities, but also speak to my professional community as well.
so your article, we're going to link it in this video. It's yeah, it's like, it's refreshing because it's a different perspective than what we hear usually. We usually hear something about diaspora, or something like, many articles are written like just basics, what happened on the 1st of November, and so this is like a really another lens that is really insightful to read. So we're gonna definitely link that. Maybe, yeah, like, to finish on a note, to like once again mention the skills that this student movement, which skills would you prioritize? So they have a lot of skills that they've shown, and as a whole group, because as you said, like, there is like, each university has their own skill, actually many skills, because that's hundreds of people that
Yeah.
go on plenums, then bring a decision, then bring it on a big plenum. So that's a lot of skills that are just combined there, and what we've mentioned. But what are some that you would prioritize, that are some that should be out there, and that are some that could inspire others?
Thank you for asking that, because you're touching on literally what my expertise is, and that's communication. I think everything does come down to communication. Now, just to be clear, you need to be an expert in your field. That just comes first. That goes without saying. You have to be an expert in your field. But without having communication skills to translate your knowledge, your view, your perspective to others who are not in your field, then you're really not going to get far, no matter how huge expert you are in your field. So prioritizing communication and being able to communicate to these different stakeholders, to different audiences, is really what is gonna, make the difference and is gonna help you get where you want to go. I think students did amazing job at that, communicating with one another, finding a way, finding a model to express their views, their position to one another and be able to come to the best possible solution. Without good communication, this is where it breaks down. And this is where you go then into a fight mode and not conversation and discussion mode. So for me, communication is something, and then it's a transferable skills. It doesn't matter what your field is, really. You could be a doctor, you could be an engineer, you could be in whatever profession from, I don't know, I don't want to make any profession sound like it's less important, but you could be a farmer, and you could be an engineer, and you could be a teacher. We all need to communicate to one another and express our own positions and how these big decisions influence us all and affect us all. So that's something that I really want to say is my priority. Critical thinking is the base for everything, to be able to observe different perspectives and analyze problem from different perspectives, understand other people's point of view, not take things for granted, are things that help us really be thorough in our decision making. I think students have been doing incredible job at being very thorough and patient in their decision making. So yeah, I mean, I could go on and on with skills, but if you ask me to prioritize, I'd say communication and then critical thinking as transferable skills are definitely super important, and they come, I want to say, hand in hand with expertise in whatever you're expert in. It doesn't always, I don't mean, when I say expert, you don't have to be expert only by going through education system. My grandpa, never finished anything more than elementary school, but I would say he was pretty good expert in agriculture. Like it came through experience, not through educational system. It was due to many things. Now so many more people have access to education, so they could be experts through that path. But I don't want to discredit experiential learning. People have that expertise as well. So that's why I want to say that these skills go hand in hand with whatever expertise you have, both through education and through lived experiences. Those really have to come together.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's a great overview. And more about that is in your article. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, then,
My
just
pleasure.
keep
Thank you
people
for
informed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep communicating.
Keep communicating, keeping people informed. Yeah, I love that now there's more platforms like coming together for informing the people and for actually getting to people from outside of Serbia. So yeah, we're all doing a good job.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
as I said earlier, I think everybody has a role to play.
Yeah.
Some may be bigger roles, some may be smaller roles, but it's not about that. It's about everybody doing their part and not saying that, oh, I can't do anything as a single person. Yes,
Now
you
it's
can.
gonna stick in my head, one straw said a million billion people. So like
Yeah.
that's actually can do for everything. Like the protest, the straws, the trash, the I don't know, whatever,
Yeah,
deodorant.
really be the change that you want to see in the world. That's what it's
Yeah.
about. It's true. It really is.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for
And yeah.
having me. This was really wonderful. Great pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, too. All right. Well, then, see you next episode.